Sorry about that, I was muted. Hello, everyone, I said. Uh, so, since I'm just kind of learning things, and God's just teaching me, and I know these lessons are just so useful for so many people in the world, and I just know, based on experience, like what's helped me, and so I'll share it. This morning I was going through, like, I was just going to work, and recently, like, I haven't been doing too many, like, I haven't been doing stuff that, like, I used to a lot when I was, like, younger, like, stuff like sweet stuff, everyone has their things that they used to always do when they're younger, like just like, just games and like, I don't know, stuff that you used to do when you were younger. Like for me, it's just, things that are, just like, yeah, games, I guess, and just like, I mean, and it's not like I'm saying like, oh, that stuff is, horrible, but it's just like, at a certain point, like there's a certain level of maturity in that stuff you can, so I'll just share my experience. I hadn't been doing that stuff for a long time. And since I'm a little bit younger, like, yeah, okay, I'm a little bit in a transition stage in my life, growing up. So I'll just share my experience. This morning, I was just like, it had been a while since I, done some of the things I used to do when I was younger. And it was almost as if my immediate reaction was like, ew, like gross. Life doesn't taste nice like this. You know what I mean? Tastes a little bit, not as sweet. But wait, hold on. There's something that I'm missing. And I use the comparison of like, this, give me a second. I know I use this comparison like the sweet drink, and I guess I could compare the way that life was tasting like to me, like, a steak. If you drink this and then immediately afterwards you eat a steak, I mean, okay, it's interesting because this is sweet. I mean, yes, steak tastes nice, but this is sweet. You know what I mean? Like this is gonna really give you that. Oh, this tastes really good. Like, and that's what life was tasting like before when I would do all those childish things. But when I tasted, the steak, and I'm using analogies, like I basically the steak for me is not doing all those sweet tasting things in life that make my you know taste buds feel like like that. And then you just kind of just at first I feel like like that tastes good too good. But then I was just like, but then I was just like, I got used. I mean, at first it was like, ugh, like it just doesn't taste good because I was comparing it to this. And if I'm comparing it to this, like this has however many grams of sugar, steak has 0 grams. I mean, like, or some sort of yeah, steak has 0 grams of sugar. Unless you put sugar on it. But just steak has 0 grams of sugar, You know what I mean? So it's just like this has like, I don't know, 1,000 times, and like, I mean, it just has a lot of sugar compared to steak. So when I first tasted like the next thing that I was going through, wasn't drinking a whole lot of that immediately. Life seemed, I'll describe it, disgusting. I mean, I'm just just being completely honest. It just tasted disgusting. My life was just like, and it's not as if I was like like outwardly showing it, but you're just feeling like, oh, like, that kind of like, distaste in, my life. And I had that for quite a while. And it's interesting because God used that because it's just like after a while, He showed me that, like, And I'll move it back to like, something that I discussed in my last video. Sometimes men like to do the easy things, like the easy stuff. But when you switch from drinking sweet stuff and then you go to a steak, it's as if it's just like it's so drastically different that you're not used to it. And so your taste buds are going to sense that it's just like, wait a second. Like, and I'll switch the topic, I guess. I'll share my experience. I had my job, I had food on the table, I had family members to talk with. You know, good things. Good things, like healthy things, talking with people, working, living your life, eating, just like living. I mean, that's like, for me, that's like, that stuff is not necessarily always sweet. I mean, I'll just share my experience. Like, I'm not trying to say that those things are like, oh, those things taste not sweet. I'm just saying, like, compared to some things, like like some things taste, sweeter to you, but they're not as, good. And so when I switched from okay, just going to work today, just going to work, talk with family a little bit, and eat food, and just just live, and you know, get up in the morning, just go to work, do that, go through the motions, go to sleep. Eventually, I got used to it, and then eventually, I was like, oh wow, I feel a lot more like wow, this is kind of nice. I kind of enjoy this steak. You know what I mean? Like, the steak is kind of nice. I like it. And then, it's just like I kind of like this steak. You know what I mean? It was just like I kind of, I started to be like, I actually like this because I was too used to the sweet. It took time for me to get used to the steak. You know, since I had stopped doing so many like, things I had done in my past, like, things that I'd done when I was a kid, like games and stuff like that. I stopped doing that stuff, and it's just like, after a while, it's like I kind of like the steak. I kind of like eating the steak. The steak tastes nice. You know what I mean? Just, just it's just because you're not used to it. And then what's interesting is this. My experience is something happens in your, brain. I think, I'm just sensing that like something happens in your brain where like when you're not used to like when you're used to like tasting sweet things for so long, it's almost as if like your brain needs to get used to like the change in like the sweetness of your life. And if you're used to doing like, things that just aren't healthy for you, healthiness is gonna taste, horrible. At first it might not taste too good. Healthy habits. But when you get used to it, you're like, oh, this tastes actually kind of nice. You know, it's healthy for me and it tastes nice. It's like, oh wow. But at first, if you're used to doing unhealthy habits, unhealthy things, at first it may taste not as good. It may taste, you know. So that was just, the scary thing is this though. In my experience, the scary thing is, in my experience, sweet stuff is, it's not always it's not those sweet things that, like, destroy you. It's just unhealthy, but I'm sorry, but my experience is just like poison. I mean, I mean, I'll just share my experience on just the unhealthy stuff. I'm not gonna go any farther than that. Just things that are just unhealthy and stuff that you might be doing that's a little bit unhealthy for you. That's all. And that's all I'm gonna talk about, dude. And in my experience, that's just like playing games or something like that, or something like that. So since like yeah, I mean, I'm sure like you've probably asked the question like, is this good for me? Like, is this good for me? Like, I don't know. Is this good for me? Um, I mean, ask the question, is this good for you? Ask the question. I mean, if you're asking yourself that question, is this good for me? In my experience, you may need to, yeah, just ask yourself the question, is this good for me? Like if there's something you're doing that I don't know, just ask yourself the question, is this good for me? And yeah, like in my experiences, games. I know, like something I used to do when I was younger, in just games, and yeah, I used to really like playing video games. I mean, as I grown up, like it lessened, but still kind of, but just games, it just really tastes sweet. You know what I mean? It just is really, just sweet. And so ask yourself that question, is this good for me? Very interesting it's an interesting topic for me personally because I'm experiencing these things. It's just like, wow. I mean, if God's calling you to do something, it's like, yeah, I mean, just it's good to just, ask yourself the question, is this good for me? Is this good for me? Easy. Just ask yourself the question, is this good for me? So yeah, I don't know. Um, there are some things that it's not always, easy to determine is this good for me or not, but some things it's just like, okay, drink, and some things it's just not always easy. It's not always easy to determine if is this is good for me. Some things are really, tricky to determine is this good for me. So, so um so yeah. There's another question maybe you might want to ask yourself. Um for me personally, maybe asking questions, and this goes for me too. Asking, um, is this something that God wants me to do? Like, is this God something wants me to do? So, um, so yeah, thanks for listening, and ask yourself those questions. Thanks.